Hey, greetings everyone. Welcome back to Sean's Irish Whiskey Shelf. Man, do we have a good video for you here this evening. As always, let's start off with a little bit of our housekeeping stuff. If you watch this video and you like it, please click that thumbs up button. Show me that you like the video. And if you don't want to miss any of my future videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. Again, YouTube, man, we depend on likes and subscriptions. Got to keep that YouTube algorithm happy. So it would mean a lot to me if you did one or both. That would be great. Also, as a quick reminder, I do have a Facebook page. If you're on Facebook and you want to look me up, Sean's Irish Whiskey Shelf is on Facebook. I answer all of the comments that you leave either on Facebook or on YouTube. I love to hear from folks. So if something's on your mind, you want to agree or disagree with what I'm tasting on a particular show, or maybe you want to just share with me what you're drinking, I'd love to hear from you. So pop in and say hi. Now, this evening, like I said, we got a great lineup here. It was actually a comment from one of my viewers that got me thinking about doing this video. And it was a viewer who's actually a co-worker of mine, kind of new to the whiskey world. And he asked me, he said, you do all these great videos, but I don't know what the different things are. You talk about these different styles of whiskey and I don't know what they mean. So maybe you could do a show where you talk about that. Well, that's what we're going to do tonight. What I have for you this evening are 6 bottles of single malt Irish whiskey. Of the 62, 63, something like that, bottles of Irish whiskey I have, these are the only bottles that I have that are single malt. With one exception. There's a bottle of Bushmills 10-year-old back on the shelf that's also single malt. But man, I'll tell you, I'm pushing it with 6 right here. So you'll just have to trust me that Bushmills 10 single malt, that's a good drop of whiskey. So what is single malt whiskey? The first thing that we need to get out of the way right off the bat is the word single. All right, you're going to hear single malt, single pot still, single grain. Right, that has nothing to do with, did this whiskey come out of one barrel? Did this whiskey come out of one batch? No, single means it came out of one distillery and one distillery only. That's where single comes in, right? Now, the second part of that is malt. Now, when you make a whiskey, you can use either malted or unmalted barley. And what the difference is how you prepare that before you actually start distilling the product. In a malted whiskey, right, that barley is taken and it is heated up, put in water and heated up so that it begins to germinate, basically sprout. And then they're going to cool off that barley, and at that point the germination stops. But they need to dry it out because you don't want all that water in there. So now that malted barley is going to be dried. With Scotch, it is typically done using a peat type of drying process. Irish whiskey, sometimes peat, sometimes not, but it has to be dried. An unmalted barley, you don't do that process, right? You go right into making mash out of that. So the big difference between a single malt and single pot still, single grain, is that we've malted that barley. We've gone through that process where we put it in water, we add heat to begin that germination process, which releases some sugars, right? So it makes a unique taste. And then it has to be dried, which again is going to bring a unique taste to that. Now, I am not a big single malt fan. Right? My viewers know, as I've mentioned before, single malt is just not really my palate. I'm more along the lines of single pot still. That typically is what I like in an Irish whiskey. However, your palate may vary. And I apparently am possibly in the minority. There's a lot of people that think that single malt whiskey is smoother. It gives you a better tasting experience. And that may be, right? If it's what your palate likes, I've got 6 bottles right here that you'd probably love to sit down here and try with me. So we're gonna take a little sip of each one, and I'm gonna give you my feedback on what we've got. You know, how strong is that smoky, peaty kind of taste? Because that's, I think, what really just doesn't agree with my palate, right? So let's start right off. Right here we have Sexton, kind of a cool shaped bottle, right? You don't see too many bottles shaped like a hexagon, right? Sexton single malt. People love it or hate it, right? There are people out there who will say this stuff is swill, and there are some out here that say, man, that Sexton, that's pretty good. I have not had a drop of this in quite some time. In fact, this bottle, the West Cork, these two have been on the shelf for a little while, and I haven't tasted them in a while. So it's going to be good to give a little taste of these and see what they're like. This is, let me double check here, you're looking at 80 proof. All right, so entry level as far as strength goes. So let's give old Sexton a try here. All right, Sexton. Not very strong on the malty, that peaty, smoky taste. Don't taste a lot of it. What I do taste is a lot of that alcohol burn, right? If single malt is supposed to be that really smooth, nice, mellow kind of Irish whiskey, that's probably not it, right? That's got a lot of alcohol burn to it for an 80 proof. It's not bad, but it's probably not the best of what you see in front of you here. All right, Busker. Now, we had Busker single malt on a previous show. We put all 4 of the Buskers together. So already had a sip of this, but got a drop here tonight. Let's refresh our memories. Much smoother than the Sexton. The peaty taste, a little bit stronger, but not hateful. Okay, I would take this over the Sexton anytime. The Sexton just has too much of that harsh burn. The Busker, I think, is not quite so harsh. It's maybe a smoother drop of whiskey. Now, the next one's a really cool bottle. Oh, by the way, didn't mention, it's a smoother bottle and it's 88.6 proof. So, go figure, right? All right, Limavady. These folks are new on the market. We looked at this in a previous video. The really, really cool thing about Limavady is not only is this single malt, it is also single barrel, right? So every single bottle of Limavady that you buy, unless you get it from the same bottle, it's going to have that little bit of different taste. So I'm going to taste this for you tonight. This is bottle number 108 out of barrel number 48. When you guys go look for this on the shelf, you may not find barrel 48. You might find barrel 49 or barrel 45. So the taste might not quite be the same. But that's kind of what makes it neat, isn't it? It's always an adventure. So Limavady, we're looking at 46% alcohol, so 92 proof, getting up there. Really cool opening, so it's not a cork and it's not a screw top. It's this glass top that has kind of a little piece of plastic in there with this bubble on here. So really a really unique bottle and a unique idea in the Irish whiskey market. Single malt, single barrel. Kind of neat. Tried this before in a video and I liked it. So now that we're trying all of these, let's see what we got. Oh man, that is a good single malt, right? This right here might make me rethink how much I like single pot still versus single malt. Very little of the peaty taste. I barely detect it, but very smooth. If my palate were a little bit better, again, I don't have that palate where I can sit here and tell you all the nuances of bread and oak and walnuts or whatever. But I can tell you what I like. I can tell you what's smooth. That right there, that is a smooth bottle of single malt Irish whiskey. That is fantastic. It's I don't even know what else to say. That's a great bottle of single malt Irish whiskey. And it's 92 proof. Way smoother than Sexton at 80 proof. So, your mileage may vary, but yeah, that's really good. All right. Now this one that I haven't tasted in a while. This is West Cork single malt Irish whiskey. This is their bog oak charred cask matured single malt. So something interesting about this bottle, I got into Irish whiskey. You guys might have noticed this little object right here. So I got into Irish whiskey when my brother passed away, and we had a celebration of life for him. And I had 8 bottles of Tullamore Dew, and we went through 4 bottles of that, and I brought 4 bottles home. And that's when I really, really got into Irish whiskey. It's like, man, this stuff is pretty good. Well, my wife thought that she would do something cool for me, and she got me a bottle of Redbreast. I think it was Redbreast. I can't remember if it was 12 or 15, but she got me a bottle of Redbreast, and she got me a bottle of this West Cork. Of course, Redbreast, single pot still, right? West Cork, single malt. So this was never really my favorite necessarily, but I did drink it. I mean, it's pretty drained. It's not a lot in there. Until I really got into collecting and getting more, I would hit this from time to time. But this is one of my first bottles of Irish whiskey. So really neat that I still have this. So this is 43%, so it's 86 proof. And let's see how this stacks up with what we've had so far. All right, very peaty. So that right there is what I think about when I think of single malt. It definitely has that peaty taste, which I guess is growing on me a little bit now since I've had all these in a row. See, I don't hate it. It's just not my preference, all right? But I will say, with the exception of the Sexton, these 3 right here have been really smooth. They've been very good drops of whiskey and nice, smooth, flavorful. So a little bit of sweetness to them. So I, maybe I haven't been given single malt its fair shake. I don't know. But this one definitely has a little bit more of the peaty taste than these 2 here. But it's not a bad bottle of whiskey. Like I said, can't be too bad. I've drained 2/3 of it, right? All right, now, Drumshanbo, one that most of you may not have heard about. So Drumshanbo, their normal bottle of whiskey, is a single pot still. Got that sitting right here behind us, right? They make a yearly edition called the Galanta edition. This is the 2022. Their yearly edition is a single malt. So this is the first bottle of Drumshanbo that I picked up. I got their regular one a couple months later. I was stunned when I first tried this, that it was single malt. I couldn't believe it. It's like, really? This is single malt? You gotta be kidding me. But I really enjoyed it. So now that we've lined all of our single malts up here, let's see what old Drumshanbo brings to the table. As good as always. It's got a little more burn to it than these three. Not as much as the Sexton. Not nearly as much as the Sexton. Does have a little bit of the burn, but like the Busker, I would put it on par with the Busker as far as how much of that peaty, malty taste it has. Just doesn't have a whole lot to it. I think it would be very tough for me to choose between the Drumshanbo and the Limavady. Maybe at the end we'll taste those two one more time and see if I can pick a winner. And it might be the Limavady simply because it's a little smoother. But we got one more to go here, right? All right, last on the list. This is called Connemara. Now, Connemara is put out by the Kilbeggan distillery. Kilbeggan is typically an entry-level Irish whiskey. I'm going to do another entry-level kind of video, maybe 3-4 down the road, and we'll look at Kilbeggan. This is their single malt product, and it's not the easiest to find, but if you do find it and you like single malt, as I recollect, it was a pretty good sip. So let's see if I remembered correctly. All right, from a smooth point of view, that is smooth. From a peaty, smoky point of view, that is by far the strongest of these six. So I would say if the peaty smoky is what you enjoy, it's what you crave, there is no competition on this table with Connemara. This has a very strong peaty smoky kind of taste. I think it's a good whiskey. I think it is very smooth, but for my palate, where I just don't enjoy that taste, I would not rank it with these other three. In fact, I still have that taste lingering in my mouth right now. Again, I will not sit here and tell you that's a bad whiskey, because it's not. Okay, it's a pretty good whiskey. But it's not for me. All right? I will drink it. If you offer it to me, I will drink it. But it will not be my first choice for a single malt over some of these others. It's just too strong on that taste. Not my palate. All right. So, Drumshanbo and Limavady. We're going to do one more taste of those two, back to back. I like that Limavady. I really like that Drumshanbo. As much as I like the Limavady, I think between those two, I'm going to have to go with the Drumshanbo. I think the Drumshanbo just has a little bit smoother taste to it, not by much, just a tiny bit. The peaty, smoky taste is almost identical. I mean, you're just not going to detect it hardly at all. But I think the Drumshanbo is going to take it from the Limavady. It'd be interesting to do one of my blind taste tests between the two. Maybe someday I will. Let's do old West Cork one more time. See, now you got me drinking my single malt, folks. I'm almost out of water. Okay, West Cork is definitely the smoothest. Out of these six, this guy is the smoothest. But he does not have the absence of the peaty, smoky taste that these two have. So, Drumshanbo, right there. That's going to be my favorite of these six. Followed very closely by Limavady. And then probably West Cork and Busker. Then you get down to the Connemara and the Sexton. I don't know. I think I'd go with the Sexton next, simply because the peaty taste just isn't there as much as the Connemara. The alcohol burn is strong with this one. But I don't know, those two on the end, they're the outliers. These four in the middle, that's where I'm putting my money. And you know what? Maybe in a future show, we'll take these three, put it with the Bushmills 10-year-old single malt, and we'll try them again. There's no shortage of what I can do for you guys on these videos. Any reason to pull out a bottle and sip with y'all, that's a great reason to do a video, isn't it? So, okay, well, that is all I have for you this evening. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned a little bit about what single malt is. Remember, single means it just came from one distillery. Has nothing to do with number of barrels or number of bottles or anything like that. Heck, you could have, with Busker here, you never know. They could be mixing two different batches of single malt to make this, so a single malt blend. It's perfectly acceptable as long as it comes from one distillery. All right? And malted, remember, malted means they are going to heat the barley up, heat it up to make it germinate, to release the sugars, and then they're going to cool it down so it stops germinating, and then they're going to dry it. And that whole process is something that only happens with malted barley, right? So, again, like I said, hope you learned something this evening, and go out and try some single malt if you haven't. See if you liked that flavor. If you do, thumbs up. If you don't, hey, at least you tried it, right? You know what you like and you don't like. So until we have a drop of Irish whiskey again together, I want you to be responsible when you enjoy your Irish whiskey. I want you to be safe and be well, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye now.